So for problem number 19, what did they want us to find? Sine of what? Was it sine of pi over 3?
Yeah.
Sine of pi over 3, right? Without using a calculator. We'll double check it on the calculator in a second. But sine of pi over 3 without using a calculator, we got to think about what is pi over 3 with regards to degrees. Because you guys haven't memorized this yet, but you should know that pi is equal to 180 degrees. Whoops. And if you divide 180 degrees by 2, then pi over 2 is equal to 90 degrees. And if you divide that by 2, then you get pi over 4 is equal to 45 degrees. And then if you take 180 and divide it by 3, you get that it's equal to 60 degrees. Okay? And then there's another one which is 30 degrees, which is, I'll write it over here because I kind of ran out of room. Pi over 6 is equal to 30 degrees. Okay? And you'll memorize those eventually. So I have a 60 degree angle, so this is like 60, 30, and this is my 90 degree angle. So what's this side called? Opposite. What's this side? The adjacent. And this is the hypotenuse. Why? Because the opposite is across from the angle, theta, which is 60 degrees. The adjacent touches, and this is the hypotenuse. Who remembers the ratios of the 30-60 triangle? 1, 2. No, it's 1, 2, root 3. The shortest end is 1, the hypotenuse is always 2, and the one left over is the square root of 3. So sine of theta, which in this case is pi over 3, is equal to the opposite, which is which number? Pi over, no, well, square root of 3, right? Over what? What's sine? Sine is the opposite over, what's the hypotenuse? 2. Alright, let's double check real quick. Alright, so mode, I want to make sure I'm in radian mode. Alright, I'm in radian mode. I want sine of pi divided by 3. That's going to give me a decimal. Does anybody remember off the top of their head what what root 3 over 2 is? It's 0.866, right? You guys memorize that? Should I stand up here and pretend? Carry the 1. 0.866? Let's see. If I can get that to go. So that's what that is. Now to verify that, obviously Mr. Adams knows what it is, but I guess I am kind of like an AP calculus / physics teacher. So I should know that. But it is root 3 over 2. So were we right? Yeah. Now if we want, I'm just going to knock all 3 of them out real quick because it's just easier that way. So if we were to do the same thing with cotangent, so 21 says, hey, you think you're so smart, why don't you do the cotangent of pi over 6? Well, remember that pi over 6, well, what's that? Well, pi is 180 degrees. What's 180 divided by 6? 30 degrees. So cotangent of 30 degrees, these are the same thing, right? So guess what? I got another 30-60 triangle. Except in this case, you don't, when I used to teach this, I used to draw the exact same triangle the exact same way every time. All right? But I'm not going to do that anymore. Because when I give the test, if the triangle wasn't exactly drawn the same way every time, the kids will get confused. So this is my 30 degrees. This is my 60 degrees. And this is my right angle. Well, since it's a 30 degree, the one opposite of that is this side over here. By the way, what's the shortest side? The length of that? 1. How do you remember it? It's 1, 2, root 3. What's 2? What side is 2? The hypotenuse is always 2. And then the adjacent is always the square root of 3. So this is the opposite. This is the adjacent. And this is the hypotenuse. And I apologize, my smart board is a little funny today. I've been calibrating. I don't know if you guys have ever seen QK, I won't say his name, but if you've ever seen QK give a presentation on my smart board, he has a tendency to hit the smart board quite aggressively, although I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But
what did he say today when he did it?
Hey, I'm recording. Stay focused. Squirrel. All right, here we go. So tangent is the opposite over the adjacent, right? So if I say, and I apologize, it's a little goofy here, so I got to write over here somewhere. So remember that tangent of theta is the opposite over the adjacent, and cotangent is the reciprocal of it, right? So that's the adjacent over the opposite. Do we know the adjacent and opposite? Yeah, we sure do. So if I wanted to find the cotangent of pi over 6, the cotangent of pi over 6 is simply going to be the adjacent, which is the square root of 3, right, over the opposite, which is 1. So it should be the square root of 3. By the way, you guys, square root of 3, let me think about that. 4, the square root of 4 is 2, right? And if I take 1 and square it, it's 1. So the square root of 1 is 1. So my answer should be between 1 and 2, right? I don't know. If I were to guess, I'd say it'd be 1.73. Is that what you guys are getting?
Yeah.
Approximately 1.73. So let's verify some things, okay? First of all, we think that it's the square root of 3. Now, Mr. Adams, for whatever reason, seems to think that the square root of 3 is 1.732058. Right? I ordered one of those videos. You ever seen those videos on TV? You can learn to do complicated math in Flash. And then they have like a kindergarten kid, and they're like, what's 2,342 times 5,678? And they're like, I don't know. No, that's not how the commercial goes. So anyways, that's what that is. So now how do I figure out what the cotangent of pi over 6 is? There's 2 ways. Well, tangent, if these are reciprocals, one way to write it is like this. If they're reciprocals of each other, cotangent then of theta is technically the same as 1 over tangent of theta. Right? You just flip it. So if that's the case, then what I could do is I could do something like this. 1 divided by tangent of, was it pi over 3 or pi over 6?
Pi over 6.
Pi over 6. I think I said pi over 3, but you guys knew what I meant, right?